Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased, true crime channel. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight is Tuesday. It's our Tuesday night live, and we're on a little early if you haven't noticed. And the reason why we're doing that is, well, I have an obligation to go to, but we will go from 5:30 until 7 instead of the normal time of 6 to 7, kind of stretch it out a little bit. And I put up a video for our Patreon members, kind of apologizing for not being able to do Patreon this week. Last week I was traveling, but it was a good, very, very good CLE. And maybe if we have some time, we can talk about that as well. So I want to thank everyone for joining us here this evening. For those of you who maybe are joining us for the first time, my name is Scott Reisch. I am a practicing criminal defense attorney going on my 26th year in doing primarily criminal defense work. And if you look at my hair, I just saw it on the screen there, like, geez, it looked like, first of all, I need a haircut. Look how shaggy I'm looking. Second, it looks like I've had a really long day, and it's actually been a pretty easy day. But anyway, so I've basically handled just about every kind of criminal case you can possibly come up with. And we're talking murder, racketeering, all the sexual offenses, you name it. I've defended people. I've gotten people acquitted. Some have been found guilty, but we gave it a run for our money. So when I talk to you, I'm talking to you from the experience of a practicing attorney, not just some guy who just really finds this stuff interesting. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's who watches the show. That's fabulous. We love that. But I try to give you a different perspective of that of a practicing criminal defense attorney. And we can look at it both sides. We try to give you the facts. You know, there's some things like, hey, the defense has got a tough shot. Other times it's like, hey, this is a defendable case. Sometimes the public doesn't always see it that way, where I think that, man, those defense attorneys, they did a great job, or man, they suck. But you got to take the good with the bad. So one of the things I want to talk about today, and because, boy, I put up my video yesterday, and I want to thank everybody for watching the video that we put up yesterday. But I said something about Lori Vallow, all right? Everybody knows Lori Vallow, charged with her now new husband, Chad Dabel. And, they had the indictment come down, so they're no longer dealing with just the tampering with physical evidence case. Now there's actual, conspiracy to commit homicide against JJ and Ty Lee, as well as Tammy Dabel. And then the brakes are hit because Lori Vallow was being evaluated for competency. And the matter was set for a hearing for competency. And the prosecutor had obtained an expert and was going to do what they can to challenge the psychologist that determined that she was, in fact, she being Lori Vallow, was, in fact, not competent to proceed. And what is not competent to proceed? That means that there's something where they're just not able, they don't appreciate, they don't understand what's going on. Could they be malingering? Well, yes. We've all seen cases where people have been malingering. And then there's people that are truly not competent to proceed. They've got a mental health issue, disease that really affects their ability to understand. Maybe they just don't. I've had clients over the years that when they're not on their meds for, say, for example, schizophrenia, they have no idea what's going on. They can't appreciate what's going on. And you put them back on their meds and they're fine. They're competent to proceed. They usually had no idea what was going on, when the alleged act took place, okay? And so I want to talk about that because yesterday in my video, I said the prosecutor has now reviewed the evaluation that was prepared at the request of the court to have Lori Vallow evaluated. The prosecutor was going to retain their expert. They didn't get an opportunity to go in and do it all over again, right? As you remember, recall Letitia Stout the case here in Colorado Springs where competency was raised. The evaluator said competent. Defense objected. We want another evaluation. They do another evaluation. Idaho, apparently they don't get to do that. And so the prosecution had to consult with an expert. And the expert apparently agreed and said, yeah, we think she's probably not competent to proceed. So what happens then? They ship her off to the state hospital. They can come up, have a doctor, usually a psychiatrist, evaluate them as well. Come up with some sort of treatment plan to get them to be competent. It doesn't mean the case is going to go away. And so yesterday in the video, we mentioned the fact that John Hinckley Jr., the man that was found NGRI, and I'll explain this, NGRI, as related to shooting of the president, okay? And some people, my gosh, this reminds me, years and years ago, when I first started my practice, I was just getting out of the Marine Corps. I used to teach, which is now Metropolitan State University for, a couple semesters. And there was always that one student. We've all been there, right? Didn't they, what do they call those words? No, there was something, there was like a thing years ago, like in law school where they kept raising their hand. They were up front. They were a gunner. There was a video about gunners, anyway. There's always that one student that want to be like, ha ha, I knew more than the professor today. I showed him. So there's lots of comments yesterday. Scott, I'm not really sure why you mentioned NGRI, because Idaho doesn't even have NGRI. So we shouldn't even listen to you, Scott. You don't know what you're talking about. You can do what you like. But I mentioned John Hinckley Jr. for the fact that he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, right? It's the same concept as not competent. They have to restore him. That took 30 some odd years to restore him to where he can kind of basically go back and live with his mom, and now he has a YouTube site, okay? Apparently plays music and songs on instruments. The point is, whether Idaho has an NGRI, which it doesn't, okay, so what? But what is NGRI? NGRI is nothing more than an affirmative defense. It basically says, yeah, I did it, but I couldn't form the requisite mental intent because I was suffering from a mental disease or defect, i.e. delusional, say, for example, in the case of John Hinckley Jr. So let's say Idaho says there's no NGRI. Okay. You trying to tell me that you can't present a diminished capacity defense? Show me a court in the world where that is not the case. You can. It always goes to be able to prove the mental intent, right? They have to show that somebody knowingly, voluntarily did something. It was their conscious objective to do that. But if they didn't understand and appreciate what was going on, you say the court just ignores that? No. So all the people that left their comments, and we appreciate the comments, don't get me wrong, all the people that appreciate their comments and said, Scott, maybe you should just stop being a lawyer, you incompetent boob. Take a look at it, ladies and gentlemen. Even if there was no NGRI, you could still present evidence that you do not have the mental capacity to form the requisite intent. And then guess what happens? They would be found not guilty if the jury was like, yeah, these people are bad. But, they may have fixed her. We got all this testimony that they fixed her, and this was wrong with her. She's delusional. She didn't know right from wrong. She couldn't appreciate what was going on. And so when you don't have an NGRI statute, guess what? They can just be found not guilty. Whereas if you have an NGRI statute, you're basically acquitted. Yes, you are. But then they have to ship you down to the state hospital, and they can keep you there, usually for the time of the sentence that could be imposed. And they can keep you there until you're basically no longer a danger to the community and you're sane again. Okay? Because what are they really saying if she's not competent? She doesn't appreciate it. There's something going on that she cannot comprehend or appreciate what's going on. And maybe, we don't know, because obviously that is kept from us, but it's just delusional. So hopefully that clarifies for everyone all the gotchas out there. Hey, I love it. Bring it on. Bring it on. Nothing brings me greater pleasure sometimes when I have to say, okay, let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about it. Well, Scott, there was no NGRI. Oh my God, are you even sure you're a practicing lawyer? I mean, how many? The Crime Talk staff, Frank, Julie, how many comments were there? Scott, there were no NGRI. I don't know, a lot, right?
At least, I'd say 100.
Okay, at least 100. At least 100. So that's what's going to, that's it, right? And so what happens when somebody goes off to the state institution, wherever they're going to restore somebody to competency? Well, they're not going to let her out of custody in this particular situation. I have had clients that have been found not to be competent and have been out of custody. Usually it was a low-level offense, and what's the word I'm looking for? Usually they weren't on their meds, and once they got on their meds, they were much better. Sometimes they just can't retain that information because competency is super low. Do you know why you're here? Do you know what these charges are? Do you know what the roles of all the people in the courtroom are? Do you know what the maximum penalty is for what you're being charged with? Can you explain the role of the jury, the judge, the defense attorney, etc.? Basic, courtroom concepts, which I always find it kind of ironic because most people in the world wouldn't know. I mean, maybe they say, oh, as a defense attorney, he's do this and they're going to do that. But, if you got a mental disease or defect, some sort of mental condition, and you really just have you're completely gone from sense of reality, it's just basically gibberish. And as I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I would love to know who comped whom, okay? Who wanted to go, I guess. My experience is, and whenever you raise competency, it's always tricky for the attorney, because if you're wrong, it can really destroy the attorney-client relationship. So you better really be right in the sense that I have my professional concerns. Sometimes you say, hey, I have concerns, and sometimes they say, yeah, there's concerns, but you don't worry about it. You should just, it's okay. It's normal, so to speak. But my experience is the malingerers are always like, oh, I need to be sent to comp me. I'm hearing voices. The voices are telling me to do things, that kind of stuff. Oh, really? When did the voices start? As soon as I got most they amended my charges, or they filed habitual charges on me. Oh, really? Oh, okay. And so you have to be, you have an ethical obligation of candor to the court. So you have to have a good faith basis to raise competency in the first place. Now, when I've had clients that were just, what's the word I'm looking for? Batshit crazy. I think that's the basic way I could say it that maybe describes it the best. When you have the client that's just totally crazy, and you say, I've got some concerns. You think that you're, a super secret agent, and I've called and tried to contact the super secret agent people, and they tell me that there's no way in hell that they would have you as a super secret agent. I'm concerned that maybe we need to, have you comped. And they get really defensive, and they're like, I'm not crazy. You're the one that's crazy. You need to be comped, etc. So you have to be very careful with that. And just because people have unusual beliefs doesn't necessarily mean that they are truly crazy, right? If you're talking like a cult case, just because somebody believes something and that's their belief, it doesn't necessarily make them crazy. A lot of people may say, oh, that's crazy. But think about, think of all the religions or cults in the world where everyday people say, that's crazy, that's crazy. But but that's what they believe. And, here in the United States, you can believe whatever you want, no matter how crazy it may seem. It only makes you crazy if, you go, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, if you go do crazy stuff, then it's the part of the professionals to figure out, do they just do that crazy stuff because they think they can get away with crazy stuff, or are they just truly crazy? So that has to kind of rise to the level of usually some sort of delusional, and I'm sure I'm using the wrong words, if, the doctors would correct me, I'm sure, some sort of delusional episode, so to speak, then where they just can't bring in reality. Had people like, I've been collecting all the rocks from Mars over here in, the eastern part of the state. And that's when it all started, when they tried to shut me down and say that I was crazy, because you couldn't get moon rocks or rocks from Mars or wherever planet here. They're just not here. And people have tested them, and the experts say, and you're convinced that that's it. And then it just leads and leads and leads and gets bigger and bigger. And the only thing you basically become completely obsessed and compulsive with proving that these are your moon rocks, those kinds of things. And they just don't appreciate what's going on. Like I said, then they ship people down to the state hospital, and I remember I had this case once. What's the word I'm looking for? The drug that they had them on. Apparently, this is like a cure-all of all drugs. When nothing else fails, it's called Halidol. And apparently it's the drug of all drugs. Halidol is used to treat certain mental mood disorders. Example, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorders. This medicine helps you to think more clearly, feel less nervous, and take part in everyday life. It can help prevent suicide in people who are likely to harm themselves. It also reduces aggression and desire to hurt others. It can decrease negative thoughts and hallucinations. Halidol can also be used to treat uncontrolled movements and outbursts of word sounds related to Tourette syndrome. Halidol is also used for severe behavioral problems in hyperactive children when other treatment or medications have not worked. That's the key I've seen. When all the other treatments don't work, give them Halidol. Haloperidol is a psychiatric medication, antipsychotic type, that works by helping to restore the balance of certain natural substances in the brain's neurotransmitters. So that's the magic drug, and I'm no doctor, but I've seen it when they think that, man, we can't do anything. Give them a little bit of Halidol, even if it's by injection. And that's one of the things when you're not competent to proceed. If they say, hey, we need to give you these drugs to make you competent, and the defendant's like, I'm not taking any drugs. You can't make me take drugs. You're trying to poison me, all that kind of good stuff. They can actually get a court order to make them forcefully take the drugs. And like I said, that Halidol apparently never done it, never had it given to me, thank God. But I literally had a client that's like, man, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't make them put me on that. Apparently it just knocks you out, you just kind of sit there and veg all day. And apparently you're competent then. You can understand whatever. You just kind of go along with everything. You understand what the rules of all the people are. Yes. You understand this? Yeah. Yep. We believe they're competent now. Let's ship them out of the way, get them off our budget. Boy, does that make me sound a little cynical? I don't know. Maria, thanks for the super chat. And as always, we don't ask for the super chats, but we do appreciate them. Why? Because it helps me see the comments. And for some reason, all my comments froze, but now they're working again. Barb wants to know, what if Lori is faking? Well, as of right now, at least one psychologist has evaluated her and said that she is not competent, so she's not faking. And then they had the prosecution's expert, and my guess would be that they were a medical doctor, a psychiatrist. And then they've determined that there was no grounds to contest the hearing. So therefore, all of a sudden, it's, for lack of a better term, everyone's concluded, at least prosecution and the defense and the court, that she's not faking. Colleen, Halidol works for 4 hours max. It's blood dependent and only really works given around the clock. Like I said, I'm not, Halidol can leave patients drooling in the corner. Yeah, not trying to upset anybody, I assure you. Not trying to upset anybody, but that's the stuff that I see that they do that. Is not incompetent now. Does that take her off the death penalty? Well, it just depends. Too early to decide. She's not competent now. I mean, and people can have some sort of episodes, just the stress of everything, so to speak. People can just kind of, for lack of a better term, just have I've seen it, kind of nervous. They basically just have a breakdown. You know what I mean? It's, it can be bad. It can be bad. And doesn't mean they can't be restored, is the magic word, not fixed. It just depends. Sometimes, who knows? She's been under a lot of stress. Maybe she just, I don't know. Well, you will probably never know exactly because that report is not going to be released. It's privileged. The courts are going to seal it because it has medical information in there. So we'll never see that. Let's see here. Sarah Joy, what in the world will happen to Derek Chauvin if he is charged in his federal case trials on the 25th? Are you streaming those? The federal court won't be streamed. The sentencing will be streamed. But just a quick jump here. We'll get off Laura. We'll go to some of the comments. But Derek Chauvin is going to be sentenced. What is it? I think it's June 25th, I think. And, he's going to prison, and then he'll be charged in the feds, and he'll probably get another sentence if he's convicted. It just depends. Noel wants to know, says, she could be treated without medications, sure, with cognitive behavior therapy too, depends on issues diagnosed, etc. Totally agree. Is it Noel? Noel? No. Either way, it just depends. We just don't know what the diagnosis is. I was just giving an example of I've seen several clients where it literally, they just kind of went along with everything, and the client didn't like it because, as one commenter said, it left them literally drooling in the corner. Yeah, Shawnee, it doesn't mean that they're competent. It means that they're agreeable. You can get them just to say about anything you want. Yes, and that was totally what we believed with my client. He goes down there. They put him on all these drugs. He just kind of goes along, nods his head, and everybody's like, get him out of here, get him out of here. And then, bam, next thing you know, I get him. So let's see there. So let's see here. Scott, have you ever resented a religious... I'm not going to use their word, Stephanie. Someone who's truly into their religious beliefs. Yes, I have. Frankly, it's not that particularly difficult. They just believe that this is what it is, and whatever happens here, but it's not going to change the bigger picture as to what they believe. I mean, you don't have to be some sort of religious zealot to have the belief. I mean, I've had clients that are just like, yeah, it all sucks. The case against me sucks, but we're going to trial, and God, it's in God's hands. And I've had to tell people, well, I've had God as co-chair a couple of times, and God hasn't carried his weight. And I think what's going to happen is going to happen, and it's going to be ugly. It's in God's hands. I mean, that doesn't mean the person is incompetent. It just means that they're leaving it in God's hands. Flip a coin. Let's see how it goes. We got faith in you, Scott. Go out there and do what you do. See what you can come up with. Maybe it'll work out. But on the other hand, if you have somebody that's like, God has sent me, I'm, doing this, and I can, you think of all the examples you can come up with, then you have to start thinking about competency as it relates to these type of situations. And yes, I have had the case where religious, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't like an organized religion, but they had various beliefs. They're like, ooh, we like this from this religion. We like this from this religion, this from this religion, and kind of combined it and made their own. I guess that's the good thing about America, right? You can believe whatever you want. It just gets a little awkward when you got a couple of dead children on your property. Always creates issues. So yeah, that happens, but it doesn't necessarily mean just because they have devout beliefs in any particular way that they're not competent to proceed. So hopefully that discusses that issue as it relates to Lori Vallow. I mean, now though, let's talk. Well, Frank, do you have that little thing queued up, Frank? We can hit the. We're going to take a quick recess.
Yes.
All right. Before we talk about what's next as it relates to Chad, he's got an arraignment coming up. Oh my gosh, tomorrow. Let's take a quick recess, and then we'll talk about how all this could possibly affect Chad and his trial. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, you put in the name, literally, and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. The big issue for tomorrow, the arraignment, right? The arraignment for Chad Dabel. Hey, Frank, do we have this little thing fired up, ready to go if we needed it?
Yeah, you can turn it on.
Let me see if I can turn this on. Okay. So tomorrow is the arraignment. Now, hopefully we don't have another delay. Let's face it, most of the evidence in the case thus far, the defense attorneys have had it for over a year, maybe with the exception of information that's been developed, produced as it relates to the death of Tammy Dabel. That's relatively new. And so what is going to happen then is we have to see what the prosecutor wants to do, what the defense attorney wants to do. Hopefully the defense says not guilty, and like, let's move along. Let's get this thing done. And I'll be honest with you. If I was Chad's attorney, I'd be like, let's go. Not guilty. Let's have a trial next week. Let's knock this out. Okay. I'm a firm believer. Speedy trial is your friend. Okay. I get it. There's lots of people like, oh, delay. Witnesses will pass. They won't be able to find them. It's like herding cats. I get it. And sometimes that's all you have. But I've said this before. The government is like a big steamroller. And it's a little slow to get rolling. But once it does, look out. Now, obviously, the government's had COVID for the last year, slowed everybody down a little bit. But I think that steamroller's getting going. You don't want to give them any more time to get any more evidence, so to speak. and just keep doing their investigation. It goes on and on and on. So what happens, and we've done this a couple of times, but I think this is a good time to go over what's gonna happen, okay? So Frank, can you switch it over here? So here we go. Here's the start of the case, okay? This is when, in this case, there is an indictment. And when you have an indictment, you don't have a preliminary hearing. In some jurisdictions, you can request a review for probable cause, or you just simply have to file your motion saying there was no evidence related to probable cause in the indictment. But a grand jury's found probable cause. Judges usually don't override that much at all, okay? I'm going to move this over here just a wee bit. So you have the indictment, and then you go to an arraignment. And that arraignment is the date where the defendant says guilty or not guilty. Now, obviously, if there was a guilty plea, you come back and you do your sentencing. You come down here and you do your sentencing, maybe 4 to 6 weeks later in a normal case, sentencing. But when you say not guilty, that starts the speedy trial clock. All right? When you say not guilty, that starts that speedy magic trial clock. And the one thing that I've always loved about criminal defense work is speedy trial. Why? Because it forces people to make decisions. Deadlines make people make decisions. If you don't have to make any decisions, you just kind of keep going along with the status quo, right? So arraignment, you go in and you say not guilty. And when you say not guilty, that starts that little speedy trial clock. So the government then has 6 months from the date that you say not guilty to get you to trial. So let's say June 9th, right? June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 6 months. So they would have speedy trial, assuming they go tomorrow. Speedy trial would run December 9th. Okay? If the prosecutor didn't get him to trial at that time, case would be dismissed. Not going to happen. Not going to happen in a high-profile case like this. They're going to get him. So what's the judge going to do? Assuming everybody goes to arraignment, they say not guilty, the judge will say, we're going to set a trial date. And we're going to set a trial date maybe about 5 months out, okay? Maybe even 4 months out. Let's say October. Let's say here October, all right? And you say, but Scott, they've got all this extra time. Why would they need that time? Well, if for some reason the prosecutor needs a little more time, they can't find a witness, do whatever, the court has issues, they want this little buffer so they can reschedule the trial, even if it's on the day of speedy trial. As long as they get you there by that date, they're going to get you there, okay? Then there's no speedy trial violation. So the court will then usually say, I'll give you 35 days to file motions. We're going to set a hearing to resolve any legal issues. So you're going to have a motions hearing, say 3 months out. And the way things go that I've seen in Idaho, who knows? Everything gets continued. Now, I get it. There was COVID, complicated issues, etc. But you're going to have the motions hearing. That's going to decide legal issues. Was evidence obtained properly? Were any statements obtained illegally? Were they in violation of, say, Miranda or something along those lines? A lot of cases don't have issues. Each case is different. Remember and understand that. Each case is different. I had a homicide trial once that I didn't file any motions. I was like, let's just go to trial. Not guilty. I've had some cases where I've filed as many as 45 motions. It just depends on the case. One of the most frustrating things you ever hear is like, man, how come you didn't file my motions in my case? Where are my motions? Well, did you confess to the police something I didn't know about? Well, no, I want a motion to suppress. And you're like, I would only suppress evidence obtained illegally in violation of your Miranda rights or search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment. Well, I want my motion to suppress. My buddy got a motion to suppress. I want a motion to suppress. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. There's no motions. You kept your mouth shut unless you're telling me you confessed somewhere that I didn't know about to the police in custody. You don't have emotions, all right? You just don't pull them off the shelf and just file them anyway. They can be used for, some discovery issues on occasion, but you like to have a good faith basis for it. And frankly, I'm of the mindset, if you're going to file motions, you want to win. Otherwise, you lose credibility with the judge. If you file a bunch of boilerplate motions in every case and there's no basis in fact, the judge will be like, all right, let's have your hearing. Denied, 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 denied. And then when you have a real issue, they're going to just gloss over it because you file all these motions all the time. So I'm a firm believer, yes, you have to do what you have to do to preserve. You're not going to do anything that's ineffective, but you don't want to waste the court's time. So when you actually do have a motion and you file not some boilerplate motion, but you put real facts in the motion, you put real law in the motion, at that point, then the judges will be like, ooh, maybe they've got something here. Let's take they got something. So let's jump back. So then they'll do the motions hearing. And then they'll set up that trial date. Because if the prosecution needs to continue it, or even the court, let's say there's busy dockets or whatever, that speedy trial remains. That 6 month remains. So they usually set the trial date out, which gives them a buffer if they have to reset. And we're talking a trial now. They think they were talking originally, 2 weeks on just the tampering with evidence charge? Well, now with the homicide, with 3 victims, everything else is kind of get lumped into everything. But it's probably going to be a 3-week trial, even as it relates to just Chad Dabel. Because all the evidence, I want to say all of it, but most of the evidence is going to be the same. Now, let's say you're getting close to trial. You got this trial date here, and the defense says, "Hey, judge, at the pretrial conference, the trial readiness call, whatever they call them in the jurisdiction, defense says, hey, I have an essential witness. They're not available. It's a lay witness or it's an expert witness, but they're just not available. Family emergency. I don't know, judge. I understand the inconvenience. I apologize. I didn't anticipate it. We wanted to go to trial just as much as everybody else. But judge, unfortunately, we have to move for a continuance." Well, wouldn't that be great for the defense to say, "Judge, we need to move for a continuance. We don't have our witnesses here. Oh, look, December 10th is come and gone. File your motion to dismiss on speedy trial grounds." Doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. If the defendant moves, not the prosecutor, but if the defendant moves for a continuance once that arraignment has been, has initiated the speedy trial clock, at that point, let's say it starts right here. You want a continuance, a new 6 months begins again because there's a waiver of the speedy trial. All right. Hopefully that, I can't read my writing there. The waiver of speedy, should use this little finer marker there. So you get the waiver of the speedy trial. So that starts that over again, and it all resets at great angst and stress to everybody, because people don't realize when you are set to go for a trial, you got to bring in all the witnesses. It's not like you just, what's the word I'm looking for? You just, you don't say, oh, here's the statement, here's the paper. You have to have the witness. If you don't have the witness, it affects the case. Witnesses aren't available. Literally, if trying to get all your witnesses, it's like herding cats. People move on. They don't want to deal with it. As a prosecutor, it can be the most frustrating thing. As a defense attorney, you can be like, oh, sorry, that sucks. You can't find your witness. Oh, you're going to give me that offer that I had offered, 3 months ago? Yes. Why? They have witness issues. Is it enough to maybe make the case go away? No, but it's enough to give you a shot. So those are the kinds of things that come up. And when you, like I said, you get to that speedy trial, you have to use it to your advantage. And if I was Chad Dabel's attorney, from what I know right now, frankly, I've said this before kind of jokingly, Maybe the reason why Chad wanted to stay in custody and never really fought bond was because he probably was safer in custody. I mean, everyone around this woman wound up dead. Yep, everyone wound up dead. I mean, think about Chad Dabel. I mean, the prosecutor's going to say, hey, he's really the, genius too, because he puts all these ideas into the heads of the heads of the followers of the people that he was trying to, get to follow him in his little group. The end is coming. The end of the earth is coming. And, he can say, hey, I have my beliefs, but you don't have to follow them. And, hey, everybody's wrong once or twice when it comes to the end of the earth, right? That's what he'll probably say. And so it's, but he's going to say, hey, she's the crazy one. And now everybody's going to say, you're right. Maybe she is the crazy one. Maybe he didn't have any idea what the hell was going on, right? You never know. You never know. But I'd be thinking if I was Chad Dabel's attorney, it's going to be easy. I didn't kill anybody. It was her. She did it. And who knows what she believed? My God, what lengths would she go to be with me? To kill my wife and her own children. Oh my God, I would never condone such a thing. I had no idea. And maybe the bodies on the property. Oh my gosh, I knew they were there. I had an idea something was there. I had no idea. But it's her and her brother. I mean, I always said, blame it on Alex Cox, right? Blame it on the dead guy. Now, if you're Chad Dabel, you've got blame it on the dead guy, Alex Cox, and the crazy sister, Lori Vallow, right? I heard a little chuckle over there. Is that because you think that's just outrageous there? Or do you think that that's plausible? I say it's totally plausible. And, that's what I'd be doing. That's what I'd be doing. Blame it on the dead guy. Blame it on the crazy, the sister of the dead guy. And neither one of them are going to be at that counsel table in that courtroom to defend themselves. Frankly, Lori Vallow, whether by complete happenstance or by design, she has now absenced herself from Chad's trial. There's no way she's going to be restored and be able to get an arraignment and things like that. And, when there's multiple co-defendants, there's oftentimes rules for speedy trial. It can be can be extended if there's multiple co-defendants. But on this one, I don't think the court can say, you have no idea when, if Lori Vallow is ever going to be restored to competency, right? I'm not telling, Mr. Mean or Mr. Pryor how to try his case, and he's seen all the discovery. I have not, but from what we all know, it seems to be, Alex Cox showed up and people disappeared, and if Lori Vallow's got some deep-seated delusional beliefs that makes her incompetent to proceed, my God, no wonder why everybody was winding up dead, right? Man, I'm telling you, Chad Dabel, although he's got his faults and certainly not a whole lot of, on the favorability scale right now, you marry your new wife 2 weeks after your other wife dies and now you've been accused of killing her, not exactly going to be something that's going to endear yourself to, the women of the jury or even the men on the jury. But you have a much better shot. Could you imagine? Can you not see Chad Dabel getting up and testifying? Like, I met this woman. She was infatuated with me and, she started hanging around me and, I'm a guy and she just, whatever. And next thing you know, he starts falling for her and people start disappearing. The kids start disappearing. Things were going to hold them back. Or all of a sudden, the zombie stuff. Was that all Chad stuff? Or was that Lori's stuff, right? If she's thinking her kids are zombies to the point where maybe she killed them or had somebody kill them, i.e. the brother. I mean, you could be Chad Dabel and saying, I agree. It's crazy. And in a bazillion years, I never would have thought that I would found myself in this situation. But let me tell you what happened. That woman's crazy. She scared me. I was only with her because I was scared to death. I mean, can you imagine the possibilities? And I'm not talking about fabricating something. I'm talking about reasonable inferences drawn from the evidence or the lack thereof. Right? Everyone always says, oh, defense attorneys cannot lie. You have a duty of obligation, candor to the court. This is really good. Janie. I met Chad Dabel in camp in 2017, preparing a people. My little thing just moved. My thing's been freezing up. There we go. He was very manipulative. I like him as a church person and believe him. I ran into Lori Chad in the temple. She is competent. Well, I don't know, Janie. I don't know how long that was. And like I said, people can be competent on one day and not competent on the other, depending on what's going on, so to speak. If there's mental health issues or, like I said, maybe somebody's just kind of I've seen people that kind of just lose their shit, just stress and just, and they can be kind of incompetent. They literally just kind of lose it. I think the not scientific term is they have a meltdown. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I think this is the best thing that could have happened for old Chad Dabel and Mr. Pryor, his attorney. I would be saying not guilty, move forward. Excuse my language, but I don't want that crazy woman next to me in any courtroom. Because remember, it was it was Mr. Pryor that didn't want the cases to be joined. It was Mr. Means that was like, no, we want to be with him. We want to go be with him. And now that didn't quite work out, did it? So we will just have to wait and see. All right. Wow. So that's where we are. Let's just do a quick reset. I want to thank everybody that's joined in. Had a lot of people join here in the last couple minutes. Started a little early tonight because we can't do our Patreon show this evening, but we're doing our live tonight. And we were talking about Lori Vallow and the fact that obviously a professional has found her to not be competent. The prosecutor had an opportunity to have a hearing on June 16th, and they filed a motion basically confessing that, hey, based upon what we've read, consulting with our own expert, we confess it, and we're not contesting Lori Vallow's competency issues at this time. Therefore, let's basically send her off, get her restored to competency under the supervision of a doctor's care and plan, and see where we go from there. We talked a little bit about, people said yesterday on the show, oh my gosh, Scott, Idaho doesn't have an NGRI. How dare you compare that same thing. No. But it's the same process. What we were talking about was when we used the example in yesterday's video. And if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to go watch it. But we talked about John Hinckley. Yes, he was found NGRI. But if somebody's not competent, they can keep them in custody. At a certain point, you have to say, hey, if they're not going to be able to be restored, what are we doing here, right? Like, let's dismiss this case or something. But it could take a few days, few weeks, maybe some medication. Maybe there's some issue. It's certainly going to be mitigation on behalf of Lori Vallow to present something to the prosecutor for some sort of potential plea. Okay? We've talked about this before. There's a difference between a defense, right? A defense is I'm legally excused from it, right? Because every charge that you've ever seen, it says it alleges that on about a certain date in the state and city and county or whatever, that the defendant did this, right? And it usually says unlawfully or against the peace and dignity of the, whatever. Unlawfully is the key term. You say, no, I was lawfully permitted to do it, right? A defense. Somebody hits you, you punch them back, you break their nose, like, hey, he hit me first, it was just self-defense. I used reasonable force. So a defense is, I did it, but I'm legally permissible to do that. It's a defense. Mitigation is anything that could potentially sway the prosecutor or the judge for some sort of leniency in the sense of a lower sentence. Like somebody takes a swing at me. I probably overreacted a little bit, but he was saying terrible things about my mom, or my daughter, my sister. And I overreacted, but he didn't swing me. He just said nasty things and I shouldn't have punched him. But it helps explain why something happened, but not a defense, right? You can't, if somebody says, your mom is, wears combat boots, that is not a reason to punch somebody, right? Maybe you could tell them that, we won't even go there, but you know what I'm saying. You can't do that. So that'd be mitigation. Explain the circumstances. And you say, hey, and since that time, I hit him. I shouldn't have. It was just, sticks and stones. But I've taken anger management classes. And therefore, look, take that in consideration. I don't deserve the full weight of the penalty that could be brought upon me. So in the Lori Vallow case, that's what the defense attorney is probably going to do, is say, hey, listen, she's not competent. It took me a year to figure this out. But, she's not right. She probably wasn't right during the time of the alleged offenses. And, you got to cut her a break here a little bit. It may already be in the process. The report that was submitted, that would, that's, your mitigation packet, page 1. So yeah, that's where we stand on that. Susan, you don't have to be psychotic to kill. I agree. Psychopaths do it. Mental illness is common and why we need laws. Yes, but you still have to be able to understand and appreciate it. You can say, oh, I've been diagnosed with depression. Probably not going to get you an NGRI, right? But if you've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but you're okay as long as you take your medicine, you've got something to work with there on an NGRI type of thing, okay? And I was at I can't remember if I've ever told the story, but had a case where, I think I was just sitting in a courtroom, wasn't even my case, where a guy had been released, had a long history of mental health issues. He had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And the cost of the medication was, I think a couple $100 a month. Rather insignificant compared to the cost of sending somebody to the Department of Corrections, which averages, depending on where you go, 26 to, if you're the average inmate, don't cause any troubles, $22,000 to $38,000 a year. By the time you figure in the building, the maintenance, the salaries for all the prison workers, the people that feed you, the cost of food, medical, etc. It's about $38,000 a year on average to house somebody. And I'm sure somebody will say, no, Scott, here in my state, it's less than that. But from the numbers I've seen, okay? And so we're sitting around, watching this case, and I think the public defender had the guy and was like, Judge, he was doing fine. He was released on parole, and when they released him, they gave him medication for X number of days. And, well, he couldn't get his prescription refilled because, for whatever reason, I don't recall. And when he doesn't have his medication, bad things happen. And, I think he had assaulted somebody at a bus stop or something along those lines. But he was back on his medication. And then all of a sudden, he was fine. And so everybody's sitting there saying, like, what the hell are we doing? I remember the judge. I can remember him clear as day, but I won't use his name. He's like, what in the hell are we doing? I've got a guy that if we just give him his medication, just as good public policy, and, he wants to take his medicine. He knows he feels better when he takes his medicine. He has his mom there who's like, I'd help him take his medicine. But when he runs out, we couldn't afford it. And if somebody just help him out with that $200 a month, we don't have issues. But if we don't help him out on that, now he does crime, which obviously is not good for anybody involved, particularly the victims in the case. But now we got to go warehouse this guy where the only real treatment we're going to give him is a medication. And like, what is that? I mean, you're just warehousing them at that point. And don't get me wrong. I mean, yes, I'm a criminal defense attorney, but I am not one of the people to think, oh, there's some people that don't deserve to go to prison. There are people that need to go to prison. Okay. As a general rule, there's rape, murder, violent crime, and everything else. Everything else can usually be resolved. Everything else, you probably don't need to go to prison on a first offense, but there's an exception to every rule, right? First thing they teach you in law school. But yeah, I mean, there's some very serious cases where people need to go to prison. They're violent, dangerous people. All right. I mean, we've had cases here where like, ooh, this is bad. Like, ooh, yeah. Not good at all. Heck, I've seen some bond in the age of bonds these days where everybody's getting a personal recognizance bond. You're there as like a defense attorney. You're like, yeah, I mean, it's going to make me look good today. I'm going to look like a hero. Client's going to love me. Already got that bond reduced. Get him out. Got a PR bond. And then you're as a member of the community, you're saying, Judge, don't let this person out. No, they're scary. Don't do it, Judge. And the judge's like, I want to give you a PR bond. Now, sure, maybe you're accused of robbing somebody at gunpoint, but it really wasn't that expensive of a bike that you were stealing. So, we'll kind of cut you a break. And, I'm a judge and I'm afraid because the ACLU is sitting out here in the gallery. And if I don't give somebody a PR bond, they're going to complain against me. And next thing you know, I could not be retained or fired. It's just terrible. So I'm going to give you a PR bond. Don't mess anything up, but good luck. Okay. So there we have it. I don't know exactly how tonight, I guess we know why tonight turned into Mental Health Tuesday, right? I mean, geez. And I'm giving away all the secrets here, I guess, right? So yeah, let's see. Let's take a couple more look at these comments. Lovely Denver. If this was a Lifetime miniseries, who would play Lori and Chad? Okay, good question. Lifetime series, right? Get this. They're already making a movie, or it's made, and it's supposed to air what? Next week, Julie?
June 26th.
June 26th. What was it, Lifetime or something?
Lifetime.
Yeah, I think it's Lifetime.
Lifetime. They already have a movie for, Cult Mom, Lori Vallow, Chad Dabel. Don't you think somebody should say, hey, guys, we're scrapping this. Let's figure out what the hell is going on before we do this movie. I mean, who knows? Maybe we got to get somebody that can play somebody that's completely, schizophrenic. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. Does anybody know if there's any mental health disorders that run in the family? I don't know. Frankly, I think this case, yes, it's going to get delayed, but it just got a hell of a lot more interesting. Okay. Because before you just had this cold-hearted bitch who's accused of killing her kids, running away with her new husband who maybe allegedly killed his wife, or now maybe they did it together, even though that's the one charge I just don't get when I read it. Maybe I can pull that up here in a second when it comes to the death of Tammy. But, now you've got somebody mental health issues. Like, is she not mentally stable on her own? Is there some sort of history of it? Or is she just under the spell, putting a spell on old, Lori, and she believes it. Like, I am, the end is coming. It doesn't matter. The end is coming. Whatever happens, happens. We did, who knows, right? I mean, it just got a lot more interesting just for the mental health aspect, because if you can't ignore the mental health aspect, okay, it'd be an anecdotal percentage. I don't know, 75, 80%. And I'm not talking about clients that have, a DUI or something like that. We're talking about the people that are charged with serious stuff. You got to look at, in every case, is there some sort of mental health issue? Okay. And even if it is maybe a DUI kind of thing. Okay. You drink. Why do you drink? What are you trying to escape? What's going on? Are you self-medicating? It's a thing. I'm not saying everybody that drinks or everybody that got DUI is self-medicating. I'm just saying you got to look a little deeper, okay? In every case, you got to get to know your client as a criminal defense attorney, which is why it's a little odd to me that, it took a year, at least I guess since April, right? April of this year, we know that the competency evaluation had begun. Why it took almost a year for somebody to say, hey, I think we've got some issues here. And I get it. I've had clients who are like, man, I'm just not sure. I'm going to give it a little time, see if things play out. But maybe it's maybe a couple of months go by, but not almost a year where you try to do that. Yeah, so this is the let me put this title up here. This is the one count that I and maybe I'm just reading it wrong. I don't know. Can you switch that over, Frank, please? This is count 6. Let me see, and I've excused my notes on it. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit, right? Up too much. Oh, too much.
Right.
Have to do it slow. Don't hold your finger. All right. And maybe I have just, every time I read it, I just think to myself, I just don't get it. Let me focus this here too. Let me see if that helps. Boom. A little better. All right, count 6. The defendant, Chad Guy Dabel, however you want to pronounce it, on or about October 18th through 19th of 2019 in the county of Fremont, state of Idaho, right? They're establishing venue and jurisdiction there. They're saying that the defendant was concerned in the commission of a first-degree murder. Well, that sounds pretty serious, doesn't it? Right? And did aid and abet in the commission, or not being present, advised and encouraged its commission, or by command compelled another to commit the crime and did so with malice aforethought and did so willfully, deliberately, and with the premeditation which resulted in the death of a human being, to wit, did either kill Tammy Daybell and or assist in the killing of Tammy Daybell and or did encourage the killing of Tammy Daybell and or did command another to kill Tammy Daybell in violation of the Idaho Code Section 18401. Now, I get it. That's the statute. And oftentimes a criminal statute will have lots of paragraphs, and the prosecutors pick, and they say, well, we're going to pick this one, right? Because here they're saying you did it. You encouraged, let's see here. You did aid and abet, right? Aid and abet is you're assisting, you're encouraging somebody to do it, right? Then it was, if you weren't present, then you advised them, or you compelled another to do something. And then if that wasn't enough, all these ors. Now, there's going to be, I would imagine, a motion for a bill of particulars to say, I don't know what he did. Did he do this himself? Did he command somebody? Was he present? Was he not present? I mean, just by the reading of that statute, and I don't know if it was sloppily written in the sense that they didn't pick which paragraph they wanted. They just kind of threw them all in there. We'll sort it out later. I think a little sloppy, particularly on a homicide case, in my humble opinion. But if that were be allowed to remain the same, I would be like, ladies and gentlemen, read the statute, read the charging documents. Unless they pick which one it was, or we're not sure what happened, but we think something did because she's dead, and well, they're just weird, and so convict them of something. As a defense attorney, I'd get up and Mr. Music go, read that charging document. That's reasonable doubt right there, ladies and gentlemen. If the prosecutor cannot even tell you with specificity as to what the defendant did in this particular case, how he did it, that's reasonable doubt. I always thought that was the delay in all of these charges, even as it related to Tylee and JJ. They have to be able to say that person did the bad thing. That's the bad man. That's the bad woman. And it's obviously much more difficult in a homicide case because the victims are no longer there to come to court and point somebody out and point to them and say, that's the bad man. That's the bad woman that hurt me, right? You have that. That's always the big dramatic moment in any court case. Will you stand up and point out the defendant, the bad man who did these things to you, and identify some item of clothing on the bad man? Yes, there's the bad man sitting over there at the defendant table. Yeah, he's the only guy with his attorney, and it says defendant on the table, but he's the bad man, right? They need that. They need to prove ID. They need to prove that Chad Dabel did it. Obviously, they're saying also a conspiracy, but you got to be able to show when the conspiracy started. I don't know. This is going to get good. And the other thing is, let's say, obviously, Mr. Pryor can do what he wants with his client. Maybe he needs more time to get a continuance. I just can't imagine why. I'd be like, charge, right? And I don't know what his client did or didn't do. Let's face it. We don't know. We really do not know because we're not privy to all the information. We just have the charging documents. And nobody's been proven guilty, so they have to be given the presumption of innocence. But think about it. If he did something wrong, if he was involved in some way, why would you want to delay it? Because let's say they restore Lori Vallow to competency. Let's say maybe she's delusional, right? Chad Dabel is, the savior. He's going to take us to the next dimension or whatever the hell they believe, right? Well, it doesn't really matter. But if she's no longer believing that, suddenly he's the bad man. If she's fixed, so to speak, she could then cut a deal, come back in and say, that's the bad man that made me do everything. He put a spell on me. Just saying. Okay? And don't listen to me, right? I've only been doing this for 26 years, handled a couple of cult cases, handled lots of homicide cases. Okay? Not that I can always predict the future, but I have a pretty good idea how something would turn out. And I'm just telling you what my thoughts are in this particular case. But if I was Mr. Pryor, I certainly wouldn't delay in any way. Means wants Pryor to go first. I always thought that before because Pryor was always saying, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. We don't need to be joined. And he kept saying, no, we want to join with him. We want to tag along. Melanie G. would have stopped the murder of JJ when she knew Lori thought he was a zombie. I would have grabbed that kid and ran to the police. Fuzzy Doxy. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough call, okay? And I'm not saying, it's easy to sit here and say, oh, yeah, if I had been there, I would have done this. I would have taken care of this. It's easier said than done, right? Because people could have different weird beliefs. I was watching something on TV last night. It was all about germaphobes, right? And I guess COVID sent these people into the stratosphere on germophobia. But most people would say, wow, that person's maybe got a couple of issues. But he's thinking, I'm perfectly fine. You just are not aware of all the germs that exist out there, and why dare you question me? And my kids are going to be germ free as well. So when is it somebody's completely rational, or they're making the kids take 4 showers a day every time they go in and out, and they have to disinfect all the clothes and all those different types of things? When is the neighbor supposed to step in, right? That's always been an issue with the child abuse statutes, where there's kind of general and vague. You should have acted. If we were there in hindsight 2020, we would have done something, and you were there and you didn't, so we're going to try to hold you accountable. It happens all the time, right? You hear about the kid that's, he's getting spanked. Well, it's not illegal to spank somebody. Do I go over? Do I call social services? Or do I just mind my own business? Because you know what? My parents spanked me and, spoil the child, or was it spare the rod, spoil the child kind of thing? Who knows? And I'm not condoning child abuse, all right? But I'm just saying as an example, where does it stop? Where does that neighbor next door supposed to step in or not step in? Do they have liability? Well, we heard some screams. Maybe the kid was just being dramatic, right? So it's easy kind of to sit there and say, if I were there, I would have done that. I respect that position, but I think it's a little more difficult, if you see somebody smack their kid in the back of the head, in the Target store, maybe you're like, whoa, not cool, man. I don't know how you got your parenting skills, but maybe that's not the right way to do it. And then, what does the other parent say? Probably says, mind your own business, etc. Right? It's not against the law, at least not in any state that I know, to discipline your children. You can use corporal punishment on your children. You just can't, break them, bruise them. And I'm not condoning doing that at all. It'd be nice in a perfect world that, nobody ever did that. But it's not a nice world, okay? It's a dangerous world out there, and people go above and extreme, and they harm kids and other people, and it's disgusting. But if everybody stepped in every time somebody thought someone who was being a bad parent, I mean, social services is already overwhelmed because they got to sort out the people that are saying someone's a bad parent, and then you got the people that are really neglecting their children, right? Let's see here. Carol, Scott, you only look 30. Wow. Okay. The funny thing is I only feel 30, right? Anyway, let's see here. Patricia's hard to know for sure, but my guess is you can't withhold religion from them, and garments are part of its for the LDS. I'm not sure what that means. I'm sorry. Question, does Chad know what's going on with Lori? Oh, I'm sure he's been informed. I'm sure he watches the evening news on the TV in the pod, or at a minimum, his attorney has filled him in, or somebody from his office has filled him in. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. Let's see, Renee. I'm by no means a Lori fan, but if she really bought into Daybell's portals and whatnot, I can see where she may be lacking competency. Yeah, I got a case, but I just can't talk about it, where, I mean, it was portals and other dimensions and end of the world and Like, why is it always the end of the world when, weird shit happens? Like, the world isn't going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? I fly. I went to a little CLE. Let me tell you about a little CLE. But then we'll talk about the world's not going anywhere, okay? I fly. And the one thing that you realize when you fly an airplane, particularly if it's not flying like a 737 or something like that, you're small in a plane. Yeah, it's got good power. It can get you above, 25,000 feet above the weather, all that good stuff. But you realize how insignificant you really are, okay? You fly into the wrong cloud, that something's building, and thank God you got good technology these days, but you wonder how those pilots of yesteryear did it. They were brave people, and they didn't have the technology they did. But you realize you fly into the wrong cloud, uplift could take you up, take you down, spin you around, you are insignificant, okay? The world is not going to end. It has been here for billions and billions and billions of years. It's going to continue to remain. The only thing that is leaving is probably us. That's it, okay? And one thing you realize when you come to the realization that you are so damn insignificant in the big picture of the world and Mother Nature is that you don't mess with Mother Nature, okay? Mother Nature will kick each and every one of our asses anytime, any place they can take it on. I don't care how big a building you make, how strong you think you can make it. Eventually, Mother Nature will wear it down. Okay? You can't stop Mother Nature. That's just the way it is. And so I just don't get why all the doomsday people always think the world's coming to an end. No, the only thing that's leaving is us when we die. That's it. The world's not coming. The world has taken meteors pounding into it, explosions, atomic bombs going off, and yeah, it's like a little scuff, but that's it. It's done. It will be back. All right? So I do not get why these doomsday people always do this crazy stuff thinking the world's coming to an end. What do you think it's going to crack and split and be hurled in? We're already hurling in space, are we not? Right? What makes you think your belief that it's coming to an end is going to be right? Right? The dinosaurs probably thought they were going to stick around forever. Big old meteor hits the Earth. Earth is still here. Dinosaurs gone. We're the only thing going away. So you doomsdayer end of earthers, get over it, okay? Everyone has called it wrong. Somebody raise of hands. Can anybody think of any time a doomsday person has ever been right that the world has come to an end? Never happened.
Remember Y2K?
Yeah, remember Y2K? Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. All our computers. And it was such a non-event, okay? The world's not going anywhere. So whether you're a doomsdayer or you're a little guy like me flying in a little airplane, you're insignificant. You have to respect Mother Nature. But the world isn't going anywhere, okay? We were in South Carolina just a couple of days ago, and we were there with a friend, and his condo's there, and wow, hey, this beach is really nice little stretch between you and your house here, your condo. That's great, but has a hurricane washed away the properties ahead of you? He goes, no, actually not. Over the last 20 years, when I first bought the place, the water was splashing up here on the water line near the condo. Now it's 600 yards away. Mother Nature has expanded the beach because of the currents or whatever. It's just Mother Nature. You can't affect it. You can move it around a little bit. You can move a little dirt. It's like building a sandcastle on the beach, right? You can be real proud of your accomplishment, but Mother Nature says, yeah, no, you're done. Boom. That's the way it is. So yeah. So let's see. Anyway, so yeah, went down there the other day. I think I mentioned it briefly. South Carolina. Then came back dropped off the lovely Miss Kristen, and then went down to the Lanier Trial Academy in Houston. Great CLE. Second time I've been to it. And Mark Lanier, if anyone wants to look up this guy, probably one of the best, if not the best attorneys in the world, and particularly if you measure success by the amount of verdicts. See, I don't get money when I get verdicts, which is kind of frustrating. I think I should get like if I walk a client on like first degree murder, I should get like $1 billion or something. Anyway, Mark Lanier, I think he's won like $40 billion in like mass tort case. I mean, it's incredible. He's a billionaire, but he is one of the smartest people I think I've ever met. One of the most humble people you've ever met, and just really smart guy and on the cutting edge of technology, has his own little production people that, just keeps it on the cutting edge of technology and really gets to the psychology of why jurors make decisions and what you need to say and how you need to say it so that people understand it. And so whether you're doing civil or criminal or both, I'm telling you, he is, it's the best. It was really 2.5 days, but, well worth what we paid. I can't remember if it was like $1,500 or $2,000 for the class, but it's very, very good. And the nice thing is this guy's got so much money. He covers his costs for the cost of it, but any profits goes to support like a little medical clinic down in Guatemala, and to help the young Mayan children down there, I guess in Guatemala, to learn Spanish so they can go to school, because if you don't speak Spanish, you can't get into school. And so just good stuff all around, just really, really good thing. So and that's what we did. Now we're still going to bring you shows all next week because there's always something going on, but have to give a little shout out. Next week is the lovely Miss Kristen's birthday. That's right. And she too, just like, can't remember who said it, I look like I'm 30. She too looks like she's 29. That's right. And so we're going to go away, but don't worry. I will be bringing, we'll still be doing our show. Don't think we'll be doing the live Tuesday night simply because that is her birthday. So I think I'd get in big trouble if I did that. So we'll figure something else out. I hear where we're going. There's not much to do. Hit the beach. Relax, repeat. Hit the beach, relax, repeat. So it'll probably take me about 4 days to wind down. And then, day 6, it'll be time to go. Day 7, whatever. But anyway, that's the plan for next week. That's why we've been out. Last week because of the CLE. It was really good. The long weekend was good. Going to South Carolina was good. Seeing a friend. I've known him since I was in the Marine Corps. He's an attorney down there in South Carolina. We've done cases together when I've taken cases down there in federal court. So it's good. Let's see. Crime Talk. Scott, a USA woman murders friend for $300K in bank, stages pain pills, said suicide, yet me found eye drops. OD. What do you think would have led to Tammy's demise? Eye drops ingested? I don't know. We all wanted to know what the evidence was, what was the result of Tammy Daybell's autopsy. There wasn't one originally when she passed away. They just kind of said, died of natural causes and send her on away. And I think it was because Chad said, don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. Let's just bury her. They exhumed her body, did an autopsy. And that gets really... when you start exhuming bodies and examining them later, it gets really, from my perspective, super interesting. because obviously when you die, the pathologists, they want to chop and slice everything up and test it, and you really have all that stuff that's really good. But when somebody has passed away, they find just their bones, or the time has gone by. There's not much in there, so you have to. It gets really. How are these doctors coming up with this information? How reliable is it at this point? It's really the kind of situation where, there may be more questions than answers. Okay. Like I said, I had this case once where bodies, they had bodies. Here's the remains. Somebody says, oh, this was the cause of death. You send it to, all we have to really go by is what somebody said. And we thought that they were, doing cult stuff or whatever, and, not eating. It must be starvation. That's it. Well, what evidence is there of starvation? And they try to run all these tests and bring in all these super smart, crazy people. And then you bring in your super smart, crazy people, and all they say is, yeah, I can't really say. Right? And so if there's no force, blunt trauma, like a broken bone, a gunshot, a stab wound, how do you really know? And, just like, remember you used to play Clue to win? You had to be able to say, it was Mr. Smith in the parlor with the candlestick to win, right? Well, that's kind of the same thing when it comes to proving a case in court. But you're talking real deal stuff. You have to be able to say, it was Chad at the house. This was kind of the cause. This is how he did it, right? And if the prosecutor can't explain, well, we can't really say, but we just know that she's died, she's deceased, that's not good enough. So every time I read that count 6, I just scratch my head. Well, which one is it? You either aid and abet in the commission, or if you weren't present, you advised and encouraged, or by command compelled another to commit the crime and did so with malice aforethought and did so willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, which resulted in the death of a human being, to wit, Tammy Daybell, and or assist in the killing of Tammy Daybell, and or did encourage the killing. Like, first it's ors, then it's and or. Well, which one is it? They have to be able to say, that's the bad man. That's the bad woman. They're the ones that did the thing that caused the death, that's responsible for the death of another person. And I think sometimes people get caught up, well, it's such a sad story. It may be. So, yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's going to get interesting. We will see tomorrow at, 10 o'clock, I think, tomorrow, guys? 10:30 tomorrow. It's uncertain whether we're going to be able to stream it based upon one of the orders that came out the other day about courtroom decorum. So people are going to be in the courtroom. The question is whether we're able to stream it. If we are, we'll bring it to you. But we have to make sure we do it properly so that we do not get a strike. I'm starting to think that those guys at, what is it, Crime TV? What's the one? Court TV. I'm starting to get to think that the people at Court TV don't like us. I swear every time we've ever had an issue with court or with YouTube, it's always come from Court TV. But then, of course, I look and see that we get more views on our videos than they get on theirs, so I understand why. But you think it would just be a little good old-fashioned competition from there. James Moen, thanks for the super chat. I'm sure I missed a bunch of super chats. For some reason, my chat wasn't flowing tonight, and I apologize for that in advance. Okay, Jerry, going back to our talk about Halidol. Thank you. Just started listening to your show about 1 month now. Thank you. Appreciate that. My God, Halidol is horror. That's the way my clients have described it. I have seen this in action, horror pills. I've never seen anybody per se on it that I could say, but what I've described it as, people just said literally it just kind of, I think somebody described it best. You kind of just go sit in the corner and drool, and you go along with anything. So yeah, let's see. It was supposed to own in 75. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Hey, like I said, we're all gonna die, right? It's inevitable, right? And that's one of the things when you, particularly 50. Some people maybe it's a younger age, but when you hit 50, you have that epiphany, that realization that you are going to spend less time on this earth than you have been here thus far, right? And so you got to make every second count, live life, don't just exist. You have to enjoy life, man. You got to go do it. I mean, what are you going to say? You're 50, 65, 70. Hopefully I'm keep going till I'm 80, as long as the old ticker is going, the ticker in the brain. That's the biggest thing. I'd rather my body break down and fall apart than, lose the mental capacity stuff. That's just bad stuff. Noel, insulin is a good way to kill, but can be tested for, including the preservatives in most commercial insulins given to patients. Yeah. And, Noel's obviously a smart person and has experience in that. I, on the other hand, that's when I call the experts. I got a doctor that I really like. He's a pathologist in another state. You can say, yeah, I can help you. No, you can't. Send me everything you've got. Yeah, you've got nothing here, Scott, after he's reviewed it. I trust him. But that's when you have to call in the experts, because how do you know what you don't know? And I think that's what a lot of people think. Well, I Googled it, and this is what I know. How do you know what you don't know? You have to get those experts. So, somebody says they saw the order online. Okay. All right, man, can you believe that? How fast that goes. We just did an hour and a half show. It literally felt like 30 minutes. So, if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that little like button as well. That would be fabulous. And remember, if you can't get to a computer or phone to watch Crime Talk, you can go to any one of your podcast apps, whether it's Apple, I don't know, there's so many, Spotify, any of them. Just type in Crime Talk and boom, it comes up. You can listen to all the episodes. So if you miss one, feel free to download it. If you thought it was really interesting, go listen to it again. Okay? That's what we want to do. And if you notice, we're here to try to hopefully explain things. We're not here telling people what to believe. Let's talk about it. All right? Let's talk about it. I saw this great quote the other day because, there's been a little bit of talk and then I'll let you all go. But I just, it's like that guy, leaving a party. It's got just one more thing to say, right? It says, tolerate dissent and let reason guide resolution. Isn't that a great quote? Tolerate dissent and let reason guide resolution. I think that's good. There's, not everybody's going to agree with you, and you can't go around telling everybody you disagree with me, so I want to cancel you, or immediately taking it to the next level. You're whatever. You know what? You got to tolerate dissent. Let reason prevail. It will. That's the beautiful thing. It will. All right? Let's face it. Stupid ideas, every now and then they gain a little traction, but the stupid ideas fail. And what I keep trying to remember to everybody is, I'm telling you, this stuff isn't rocket science. We've all been through this before. I mean, the world has been through this before. All the issues we deal with today, you think they haven't been dealing with this for the last, hundreds, if not thousands of years? It's all the same. Where do you think the stuff came from, right? Human nature, right? Just like pilot, you're insignificant. Human nature, it's not going to change. It hasn't changed for thousands of years. As long as we've been here, there's always going to be people doing bad things, but we got to maintain society, give them some due process, and make sure we don't convict innocent people. So, all right. Hopefully, we'll let you know what we're doing tomorrow when it comes to the arraignment of Chad Dabel. Ought to be good. I hope they just say not guilty, and let's get this thing started. James, this is from your moderators. Thanks. Oh, and thank the mods. Thank you. Now, our mods, too, they're great. It's a volunteer position, please, ladies and gentlemen, so don't give them too much of a heartache. If they cut you off, I get it. We should tolerate it, but sometimes there's just some things. It's not us. It's YouTube, okay? Don't want to get the channel taken down. And then what have we accomplished at that point? Nothing. So, and I believe in tolerance. I responded to the people that questioned what I said yesterday. I'll admit I'm wrong, or I'll back up what I've said. Okay. Either way, let's talk about it. Anyway, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank Frank. Thank Julie for hanging out here this evening. The lovely Miss Kristen. Almost your birthday. And, don't forget Miss Winnie the Bulldog. She's got some cool merchandise. Took it home, but real quick, check out this mug. Okay. Check out the Miss Winnie the Bulldog mug. Take a look at that. How cool is that? Right? And then it says Crime Talk Scott Reich on the back. That turned out pretty good, I might add. I think that was a combination of Julie and Frank, wasn't it? Yeah. Got a great team here. Couldn't do without them. So thank them. Thank our mods. Thank everybody. Thanks for watching. You know you have lots of things that you could be doing. The fact that you take your time to listen to Crime Talk is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful evening. And we will see you tomorrow on Crime Talk.